Hey, and welcome to the Weed Out, where we weed out the nonsense in our backyard and talk about the ghouls and tomfools. I'm Spencer Fox Peterson, as always, with my partner.
Hi everyone, I'm Joanna May Booty.
And this week we're getting into it and changing it up. Normally, well, the last couple episodes we've had guests on. So this episode we're going to break it down and share some fun, well, not fun, but fundamentally fucked up headlines. And we'll start with like a national headline that we should not miss. There's always a big national headline when it comes to police misconduct, prison misconduct, etc., judicial system fuckery. You know, just Google what's happening with bail reform in New York State with Eric Adams and the governor Kathy Hochul. They're ghoulish. They're trying to make their draconian criminal justice system even more draconian with data that against the data, regardless of data. Anyways, so this week we're gonna just talk about some headlines that are actually really pertinent to our backyard, that are well sourced, and we feel like really exemplify what we need to be paying attention to. So Joanna, what's our first headline? It's the national one, right?
Yeah, the first headline is about that San Jose Police Union executive who was charged with attempt to import and sell fentanyl. So I have an article from ABC News, but I can share more. I'll probably share this one because it's the one that we found. Her name is Joanne Segovia, and she's 64. I don't like that we share almost the same name. But I was shocked, Spencer, that a police officer or an adjacent one, because this is a police officer association president, was even connected to fentanyl in any way and didn't die. Based
Yeah,
on
I heard.
the
I heard
narrative.
when you're assigned cop at birth that you have an allergy to fentanyl.
Right.
Um, it's like the force, like they're repellent to it.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like what is that thing for kryptonite for Superman? That's like for them, I thought.
yeah, apparently a
But
mild.
apparently not because this woman, or at least for the union associations, she has been trafficking it. And
Yeah,
oh,
she was ordering it to the office. And this reminds me of any Lord of the Rings people out there. Where it's both in the books and the movies, but it's well done in the movies. One of the hobbits, while they're trying to figure out how to get by the marauding army, they're like, well, let's just go close to the danger and sneak right under them. And the closer you are to danger, the further you are from harm. And then the little nose tap, right? And that's essentially what cops get to do. It's like their buddies aren't going to investigate them. Like, it's the perfect crime until it's like, wow, this is egregious, and the DEA has to shut you down. And this went on for like almost a
a
decade, maybe.
decade, yes. So like one of the people that works with her was quoted as saying like this is not the person we all know and love because in their minds they thought they were going to find, some big bad drug dealer and it's their 64-year-old union president.
Right. And she's really small potatoes, but like this is the stuff that's flooding our streets. She's getting, you know, stuff from India and wherever that's unregulated and it's dangerous. And I'm not gonna yuck anybody's yum or question anybody's need for illicit substances. I believe you have bodily autonomy to alter your status within reason, I guess would be my, because you can't make it harder for other people to exist just because you're on drugs. But I'm not judging you, but like this person's not a safe place to get it. Nobody. It's when it's being passed through hands and it's a dark, in a dark market, it's dangerous. And this person who is tasked with protecting cops when they do illicit shit is doing illicit shit.
Yeah,
um,
they found thousands of pills and according to the complaint, they talked to her in like February of this year and were like, yo, like you're being interviewed about this controlled substance stuff. She didn't stop because like most cops, they don't think they're ever going to be held accountable. And just got like another shipment from China, apparently. That's where she ordered the last shipment. And they were able to like pin her down then.
And to make it pertinent to like what's happening right now, as of this recording, today was Donald Trump, 45, as we like to call him. He was arraigned, read his indictments, 34 felonies of basically conspiracy. I don't know. He's just fraud, just general fraud. He frauded so much. And this is kind of the same deal. It's like the dude just crimes so much. Like, do you know how much smoke you have to make as a rich white man who is high in political office to like actually go after them? Like this dude was just lighting fires everywhere and just like he doesn't give a fuck. And again, not to like get too down the rabbit hole, the system doesn't hold the powerful accountable, so it's kind of fucking pointless. And it's good for us for holding somebody like 45 accountable, or this woman out of San Jose, and it doesn't really matter. It's the narcissist white supremacy. I mean, they just can't help themselves.
And it really shows that like what we're going to share next really shows like it's not just at the national level. Like we have problems in Western Mass similar to those of San Jose. Not the same, like we're not seeing like I guess trafficking yet, but how do we know that that's not happening? And I mean, actually, in my town of Montague, we did have that until 2018 when Chief Dodge was replaced. So it does happen. But to move on, we have a story out of North Adams. So is it okay if I keep going?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's keep
All
going.
right. So this one,
Sleepy little town of North Adams.
yeah, I used to call it the Enchanted Land of Na. I've lived there twice. It's very nice. But this huh?
Matt, what does that mean?
The Enchanted Land of Na, just North Adams. That's what I used to call it.
Understood. Okay.
It just you said it was this nice sleepy little town. I always had a nickname for it because I lived there twice. But so I have not looked into the police chief or the police department much in North Adams. So we have public records reveal domestic drama ahead of suspension. So the chief of police was suspended, and then he was basically like let go from the department. And this is a WAMC Northeast Public Radio reporting that Josh Landis did. I hope I didn't butcher his name. Apparently, it's a city native, 15-year tenure under the former chief. And then it just looks like he had inappropriate relationship in like his private life that kind of overlapped into his chief duties, to the point where the people in charge kind of they didn't have I think at the end of the article it just says they've lost trust in his ability to like hold that position. The one thing about the article that I thought was a good thing that people should use at North Adams to compare to maybe other towns was the chief of police salary was $91,000, and that's honestly really low compared to what chiefs are paid in other towns. Like Greenfield, the chief makes like 175 base. So
yeah, I mean, but I mean, what's the workload? I mean,
well, North Adams and Greenfield are similar.
For anybody out there, not to call it workload, but what are their responsibilities? I guess.
Well, I feel like those two towns are comparable. After I live now next to Greenfield and I lived in North Adams. Like I don't know the numbers, and I will look it up. But I mean, what was the chief of police in Greenfield doing? He was on, you know what I mean? He was on leave for like months.
Right.
So I just think the taxes in Greenfield are really high too. So I'm just highlighting it so that people who think of where our tax dollars go, like why are small towns paying a chief $175,000 a year when like, what is your salary? What is my salary? You know what I mean? Just stuff like that.
Yeah. And I guess the highlight here is it's not about him having a domestic. I mean, hey, it doesn't sound like anybody was physically assaulted, but there is unspoken violence when you're dealing with a police officer. They're intimate partners. If you Google 40% of cops, let's just look at it from the perspective of the people dealing with somebody in that domestic rage or squabble situation with multiple lovers in a toxic monogamy stew, um, and how it interferes with his job. He has a lot of power. This is a person with a relative amount of power, and if I don't accuse anybody of like murder, but like it's not off the table. Like, anything up to and including murder, these cops think they can get away with murder. They have a culture of that, and it doesn't mean I don't mean to accuse this chief of that. I want to make that clear. I don't mean that, but that everybody kind of knows. That's in the back of everybody's mind with the parties that are involved with domestic squabble. So that's why it's like inappropriate. Like if we all know and agree that a chief of police has a lot of power, unfortunately, that means he's got to be able to keep a cool head and act reasonable when things are over, or when he doesn't hear things he wants to hear. And like, this is the same. He has to be able to walk away and de-escalate with his loved ones, like, unfortunately, this is a bad reflection of character that seems all too prevalent with cops. And like, just Google 40% of cops. I mean, they self-report abuse at a rate of 40% on pretty good studies. So
This one is not as egregious, I don't think, as San Jose Police Association trafficking medications, but it is still alarming when you think about it, because he was using his position as a police chief and his power. He was, also using his work email, and eventually things just, I will share this article, but the town eventually said, like, we don't want you in this position anymore.
and it just goes to show you can hold people accountable, and also like, what is a good take home pay? Yes, why is Greenfield, like, unfortunately this is how we hear about a lot of salaries, or like that actually for some reason when you put it out of context and you put it on a spreadsheet and you're like, look what they're paying these cops, people just see numbers on a sheet, but then you put it in context with a salacious story and it sticks with people. And I'm not I that's the thing that drives me crazy about how media literacy works. But unfortunately, when you attach things to salacious stories like this cop, I'm like, again, I don't care about his domestic problems. Like, that's his business, that's their business. But like, when you doing it on company time and you're wielding unspokenly, unfortunately, when you're in this position of power, like, you have to be extra aware of it, or else you're unsafe with it, period. um
Absolutely.
this is a lot of our problems with a lot of police executives, or whatever you want to call them, management, and just they have a lot of power all the way down to the individual trooper or policeman. So
Yeah, and I just looked up the numbers for Greenfield and North Adams, just to compare so people would know. So North Adams is close to 14,000 and Greenfield 17,000. So they are comparable in a way. I mean, that's a 91 to 175,000 is a huge jump,
right.
in my personal opinion. If I'm being taxed, just because Greenfield's taxes are really high. And when you think about what your taxes pay for in Greenfield, that's for the chief and then like stuff like that. So
Yeah, let's like, I guess this is a good segue into Greenfield, because the next
oh, it is the story. Yes.
let's
So
go
we
to
have a
Greenfield.
story.
Give some context on that.
I received a press release from Counselor Golub. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing their name,
Just spell
but
it
it
for the audience.
Golub, and it's a counselor in Greenfield. This was on March 31st for immediate release, and the mayor announces plans to cut proposed Greenfield public schools budget by $1.5 million, maybe more than that. So on Wednesday, in an email to Greenfield city councilors, the mayor announced plans to cut the Greenfield public schools budget by for a little bit over 1.5 million. While the mayor's proposal constitutes a small increase over last year's funding, it amounts to a 6.7 decrease from the superintendent Christine DeBarge's proposed budget. So unlike the chief of police, the superintendent DeBarge came with like an actual proposed plan, and the mayor's wanting to cut it. So at this point, the final budget will be determined by the city council. So when the city council lacks the power to like appropriate funds in any other city department, the council may increase funding specifically to the school budget due to the state statutes. So the next two meetings, so basically the city councilor wants public input, and I know it's because they've had so many issues with the police department up there. And again, we mentioned how much the chief of police makes and how much money they've demanded over the past and or lost the city. So I think city councilors would like people to come out. So the next two meetings are April 19th and May 17th at 6:30 at the John Zahn Senior Center. They're also typically on Zoom, so you can find those on the Greenfield City website. There will also be a school department budget meeting on April 24th at 6 p.m. And the final budget is likely to be voted on May 17th. So I'm sure but they really want people to be there for public comment because again, they want, like, why is the school system the last place to get money? The police department had an increased budget of 12.55%, the fire department by 11%, and public works by 6.2%. And Counselor Catherine Golub says, like, our budget is a reflection of our values and what we value as a community. I believe that Greenfield's number one funding priority should be our schools. If the Greenfield City Council passes the mayor's budget as is, it will mean layoffs, unfilled positions, and cuts to essential programs for our kids. This has been the story year after year in Greenfield. Why are we starving our schools? It hurts our whole community. And I'm really glad that she sent this out to a number of people in the press, including us, because I feel I think it's important to like look at those numbers again. It's our tax dollars, and how we vote and how we allocate money does show our value of our values, like in their community. I don't
And
know, Spence, what do you?
this doesn't outrage you. This
Yeah.
like this same police department. So Greenfield Police, let's tie it back into these fuckers, right? They are literally taking food from children. They're taking candy from children, knowledge from children, like not directly, but through the transitive property, right? And it's like, just let's even get really basic here. Why does the sewage department only get 6%? I'm sorry, poop tubes fucking matter. All right. I don't want diphtheria. I don't want, TB, diphtheria. I don't want any of the shit that we used to get on a regular. Listen, Abraham Lincoln's kid, the president of the United States, lost kids to fucking typhoid and all sorts of stupid shit because they were drinking water that's contaminated with poop. So I'm sorry, 6% to the sewage department. That just doesn't make any fucking sense compared to the what do the police do? It's just a fucking money pit. Literally, that department is a money pit specifically. They just pay it out minimum 400,000. It was probably more when all said and done. With everybody who's got to get paid, right? Like for system internal racism within the ranks, and there's reports of officers and captains and lieutenants that live in the town that have Confederate flags or have been belligerent and drunk and harassed marginalized people in their neighborhood on their free time, maybe not in uniform, but and then just all the story. It's endless. And Greenfield's a sleepy little town that like Pittsfield, like Holyoke, really were decimated when manufacturing left the United States, and their depressed economies, and obviously painting with a broad brush, they all have their unique histories and culture there. But it's poverty. Poverty is the issue, and defunding your schools in lieu of more toys and paying for lawsuits and just general boosting morale. They're complaining about being short-staffed, and then they threaten to pull their night shift, and they do pull their night shift. And then miraculously, everything that happens at night that the Mass State Police have to report on, then the Mass State Police making a big deal about it on their social media and pumping out to their press sources, and then Greenfield people are pressing out to WWLP and Mass Live, and it's this whole fucking pity potty about morale and blah blah blah. It's like, no, it's accountability. We don't fucking need you, period, end of story. And people who are educators, who are getting kids ready at best to be little worker bees, to be frank, or at worst, part of the prison industrial complex. And that's what we're pushing everybody towards. And it's not good. It's not good. And we got to change the way we educate. We got to change the way we think about children in the future. And one way we can start is by not, level funding these cops at the very least. I don't even think I'm asking for much. I'm an abolitionist and I'm quite vocal. It's well documented that I'm even a little too extreme on my views of police, even within other circles that you would think would be totally down with it. But the reality is, man, like they're defunding us. Joanne and I did an episode, way early on, about how they defund communities. And not to go too far off tangent, but there's places where they're defunding libraries,
Oh, absolutely.
and for actually East Hampton locally, there's a big fight
That's local.
libraries, and that's bad for the community historically. Empires fall when resources are over allocated to the military complex, and the prison industrial complex is like an offshoot of the big thing at the top, which is the military industrial complex and the proliferation of weapons, and then it all trickles down. And that's how we all get fucked by that system. And this is how Rome fell. This is how everybody falls. So you get too much bloated in war, in violence, the monopoly of violence, and it falls, and it's bad times for everybody. So we need to try to avoid that, or at least inoculate ourselves to that oncoming fight. It's weird that everybody's investing more and more in police when we're going to have a future fighting over water.
Yeah, like I just feel like what the hell to parents and like people. I don't have kids, and I would actually like be trying, if I lived in that town, at least going to these meetings. I would not be okay with the fact that the children in my town or my community weren't getting the staffing and programs that they need to thrive. I think school lunch should be free, and if they're not going to keep that federal program in place, I think all towns in Massachusetts should. And I think, I don't know, I just don't understand how anyone can think like, oh yeah, the police need more money and our kids will just have to make do. And teachers have done so much through the pandemic in terms of just, we've seen now what school is. It's almost like daycare for children in those systems. Like our society almost crumbled in some ways when people had to have their kids at home. So I just feel like, how important are teachers to you? I find they actually increase public safety over cops because knowledge is really important, like Spencer said. So I don't know, it's another values thing. And the worst part is, like Spencer mentioned, like the police have this in Greenfield, we're like, oh, we're gonna have to stop our night shifts and like all that stuff. Then they find a grant. So there's a Greenfield police to hire 3 officers, 1 dispatcher to help cover overnight shifts. This came out in
This
the
came from
last.
WWLP, and so that's a propaganda rag. And they
Totally.
launder the police. And but you can still glean a lot when you pay attention to who's saying what, So this is clearly we were just fucking lazy at, like, let's just go Occam's razor. We were too lazy to look into other ways. We just wanted we wanted the homeowners to pay for it. We didn't want to look for grants. You know what I mean? Like, that's the way I'm seeing it. And they got desperate, so they finally did their homework and they found a place to find the money. And now they're like, pat on the back. Meanwhile, when other department heads show up to any of these town meetings, Holyoke, Greenfield, Northampton, wherever, the sewage department, the schools, any of these department heads show up, they got binders, man. Like, I swear to God, the police just like throw it on a dirty napkin and slide across the table. Like, that's how much protection costs. Because they just find money. They like when they need it. Oh yeah, I guess we had that the whole time. It's a
Well, I'm not. Well, that's the thing. The grants option is not for. Why don't schools have that option?
Right. Well, our school is completely. Well, it was never great to begin with, but It was better during the socialized 50s. Yes, you heard me. We were kind of socialist in the 50s. High tax rates on the corporations to invest back into their, equipment and their people. But, that didn't last very long because capitalists going capitalist.
Well, at least here in Massachusetts, though, you're right. But we have always ranked, our public education is always ranked
And
really high.
also, just so everybody listening, we are two white people here, and I want to say it was only good for some white. I want to say it was only good for white people. Was those times, all right? It was dark.
Oh, and men. What I mean, like, and
And
men,
then men, yes, I'm
white
saying
men.
white men. It was
Some
good. It was good, and yes, I'm sure some guys had alcoholic dads that beat the shit out of them. But like, okay, whatever.
sorry.
Everybody's kind of got that rolling the dice with that fucking problem in a country with more guns and alcohol than people. But is what it is. We
I
need to
could
just
not.
embrace the fact that that's what we are as Americans. We're as the European settler colonialist state, like we are just guns and alcohol. That's what we do, baby. And it's not great. It's not like a flex. I'm not proud of that, but like we just need to be really frank about that. Most of our
Well, I mean, that's literally what the Greenfield police do. They're like, they have guns and they drink constantly.
yeah, and like maybe I'm not afraid of like talking a little out of school, but where on the street is that like all the power players hang out at one spot, like some country
Drink together. Yeah.
drink together and they get rowdy. So like you hear there's no like, okay, this isn't journalism, this is more tabloid stuff, but like
Whatever.
people are messy. They're messy. They're messy
Yeah,
people.
they're messy. Exactly.
Messy.
I can't just go out and do whatever I want like that. And I wouldn't want to drive like that, but still.
But even if they're not driving, they're messy. They're just messy folk. Like they're sloppy, they're messy, they're cocky, narcissistic. Like that's like the MO to be a cop or high up in some of these punishment bureaucracy positions. It's the lack of
And they're super overpaid, you know?
I stole that term punishment bureaucracy from Equality Alec on Twitter because that's what it is. It's a punishment bureaucracy. That's why we can't just get rid of this because it's so there's people who have been in this system for 50 years that train the people that are there now. And it's just, it is what it is. And we just need to abolish this shit. But like, I want to move on because as always, let's just bang out all the Holyoke ones. And
Okay.
you bang out the headlines and I'll give like one word responses.
Okay. So in Holyoke, we do have more because they have.
We'll list everything in our Substack, of course, for show notes, but we have a few gems here.
Yeah, so we picked the best of the best that are the most recent. So New England Public Media, Dusty Christensen reports records obtained under the new mass law show Holyoke police dismiss nearly all civilian complaints, and that's over the last decade. So I think we've talked about this, but that's the headline that we're sharing first.
Trash. That's it. That's the word trash. Like the cops investigated themselves and found no wrongdoing, and there were no complaints. I don't know what you're talking about.
And a backup to that story would be Andrew Quimier's. He kind of dove a little deeper, so we'll share that part, his story as well, or his article about this particular story, because records is kind of Andrew's thing, and it goes over the new law and all that stuff.
Great.
The next,
you got to have Andrew back on. But that's
yeah, for sure, wealth of knowledge.
yeah. It's people like him and Dusty is the grunt work that it's the unsung heroes of our time. You can't hide everything.
Right, and there are people that are persistent and will do the work to find. And I'm so thankful for those people, because again, the next one is a shoestring article, and Dusty wrote this, and it's Holyoke PD captain suspended amid sexual misconduct allegations, and this is 6 days ago.
So this was the end of this was reported the end of March 2023. What I mean, it's this person was high up. This person was a captain, promoted recently. They were a lieutenant for a long time. So they were deeply entrenched, and they are the ones suggesting promotions and not suggesting, but this guy has a lot of weight. in the organizational structure. He was like the police liaison to like Mayor Garcia's transition team. So this is the dude that Mayor Josh Garcia had the most direct contact with. Like,
Awesome.
right. And listen, the amount of sexual assault in police, military, prisons, it's absurd. And I think there's a correlation because they don't see the people in their custody. They don't see other people as equal human beings.
Well, yeah, so it was apparently a coworker, a female coworker. He was sex pesting, in my opinion, sex pesting her for nearly 7 years. So
Sexual misconduct.
unwanted advantages, it says, for nearly 7 years. And then he groped her and kissed her against her consent. So
The
that's
implication
gross.
there's nothing you can do about it. All the
Mhm.
all the juicy tidbits, and this is backed up with court documents, people. So like my one word, not well, it's 2 words. My one word is I guess trash. Trash again. Like just throw this guy and this whole department in the dumpster. Just trash.
I guess for me, it's just like, okay, this is what you consider public safety. If you're out there and you live in Holyoke or anywhere else, like, come on.
This is the people in charge of investigating sexual assault. Just
Yeah.
you know.
Like, they're creating hostile work environments and unsafe work environments, and you're trusting them to hold a gun, which leads to our next article that came out on March 31st. This is by Dennis Hohenberger. I hope I got that right. I'm always going to butcher people's names, and I'm sorry. This one is out of Mass Live, and it's Holyoke Police Department may replace aging handguns with new Glock 9mm weapons. So, I mean, they just had that incident where one of them like pointed a gun at another one, and now they're trying to get new guns. I just don't understand why they need new guns.
It's because it's a money laundering scheme. Like essentially, it's we have so the gun lobby and the gun manufacturers. What we should be doing with food, we do with guns. Endless subsidies in the sense that we'll keep buying guns from you. Like, oh, these guns are 5 years old. We're going to give every department in the country brand new guns. That's like Joe Biden's thing, right? Like 100,000 more cops and like a shit ton more money. And fuck Joe Biden for that. But unsurprising from Crime Bill Joe. I mean, like whatever. So my one word, it's a word I made up right now. Motherfucking son of a bitches. Because if I did any of that shit with my gun or a gun, presuming I had, anybody, forget it if you're fucking not white. But like anybody that's not a cop or in a position or within the parameters of power, you point a gun at them, and if you have a license, your license is fucking gone because they're the ones in charge of your fucking license, guys.
That's what I mean. Like, it's absurd.
They can, and that is if you're credibly accused, and by credibly accused, videotape or credible, verbal complaint, they can just come and be like, hey, we issued your gun license and your right to have that gun on your, on you. So we're gonna take that and take the gun, and we'll see you in court. And possibly there might be a warrant along with that too. Like at the very least, they're coming to get your gun. And the fact that these guys, it's bullshit. It's people always like, oh, we have 2 tiers of justice in this country, rich, powerful people. No, we have like 17 million levels of justice in this country. And there's compounding factors. Sure, will I be pressured into getting a crew cut and shaving my beard if I'm in trouble for like unlawful use of a firearm? Am I gonna be pressured so I like can code as like a normal white dude? Maybe I can slide through because they know that a working class white dude is different than a working class black dude. And then adding all the factors. So it's just like these sons of bitches, man. These people, the ones in charge of doling out fucking gun licenses, and they're pointing it at each other. Like, come on. And these people,
and they're requesting more guns. They're like, we need new ones because when we point it at each other, we'd like it to be brand new.
What happens to the old guns? Do you melt them down? No, you sell them. Who are you selling them to?
Probably the streets.
Also, like, just take care of your guns. Like if you're in the military, right? You don't just walk around with your rifle. I wasn't even in the military, and I know this. This is just basic fact. You go to the armorer, and like when you return your gun for like whatever duty you had to do that required you to have a gun, which not everything requires you to have a gun, so they don't give you a gun whenever you're out and about. That's how the military works. They do just, I mean, I'm not like here to like praise the military, but they do a lot better of policing their shit.
Well,
um
yeah, they take actual like like they actually do
bring a
take
gun to every
in what's it called, inventory?
yeah, they don't take a
Like,
gun to every fight, even like internally, they purposely keep the guns away when they're dealing with like stuff just on base, right? Anyways, they purposely don't give out guns and everybody has guns. Like you have, and when you bring it back, it has to be like up to spec, clean, disarm, whatever their process is, their SOP.
so that's my point. Like they do a really good job with inventory because some friends of mine were in the army and have told me this, that with the police issue, their issues with the police are that like even in Holyoke they've lost guns.
How is that? Like, yeah, no, this
Like
is
how is that possible? Like if you're supposed to be a public safety officer.
right. And there's tons of stories. Like, there's a Mass State Trooper lost a rifle in an unsecured vehicle recently, and they're like, "Well,
Yeah, it's like
let's find this gun." It's like, no, fuck you. You find that fucking gun. That's on you. Why are you what? Um, and
I
also,
just
oh, you guys get to not lock your trunks on your cruisers, and you expect what to fucking happen? And
yeah, like those are such dangerous weapons. They should have protocols in place for like that. That
why
should
does
never
every
happen.
cruiser need to have a shotgun and an automatic rifle in it? Like what? Why does ever so like you're telling me we have quadruplicates of every gun in our inventory and they're just rolling around in the streets with them? Again, in the military, it's not how it works. But I think they don't take care of their weapons. I bet they're really sloppy. It's like line cooks that when you share knives, I bet they're really fucking sloppy with them. They're all dinged up. They've got food in them. They probably don't clean them like you do, like responsible people should be doing. Because even if you don't use it and it's out and about and exposed to the elements, you need to maintain that firearm. And there's probably a reason their guns are out of commission and they need more guns. And it's like they probably don't take care of their shit.
No.
It sounds like to me.
If they're losing it and pointing them at each other, like I can't trust them, in my opinion.
That tool, and it is a tool, and it's a tool of violence. And they are willy-nilly with violence. I mean, that's really it, and that's why motherfucking son of a bitch.
For sure. And the last story we have comes out of Pittsfield, my hometown, which again, a comparable city to all the ones we've mentioned. And it's out of iBerkshires. It's an online publication by Brittany Polito. Community members oppose more police in the Pittsfield public schools. And so basically people are speaking out because they want to add more resource officers to the schools. And it's been this was March 31st, and it's been a year since Miggy Estrella's death and murder by police is what I would call it. And so basically some of the activists in Pittsfield that we have worked with in the past are saying like, and others, community members are just hoping like, why would we add more police officers if this incident just happened? We want to keep our children, especially our Black and brown children, safe. And how does adding cops to schools do that?
It doesn't. This is a well documented thing. We need to get cops out of schools since Columbine, which was like 1999, I believe. Not one SRO has prevented a school shooting, so it's a failed experiment. It doesn't work. More cops don't solve our problems. We need to feed and nurture our society and not police the fuck out of it. And that's all we've been doing since the history of time, because of colonialism, people. It's all ties to colonialism. It's really simple, not to get too meta on you, but like this is how colonists control shit, and they force their way. And that culture is very deep embedded in us. And that's why, and people are waking up. I'd say people are waking up because we're connecting through our small media and our small journalism, and people are getting their voices out regardless. And it's not perfect and it's hard. So like, again, this is just like my time to point out, like, communities know what they need. and you need to organize. You need to share like media. There is a propaganda game we got to be playing too. So reminder to like support local media, whether it's Andrew, our journalist buddy who does all the records requests, or people like Dusty who work for New England Public Media and the Shoestring. I think primarily the Shoestring now, which is good news for all of us because he's wonderful. And support people like the weedout. So yeah, go to our website and go to all these places and support us, get us clicks, all the things. Tell your friends, talk to people about it. We're trying, and that's all we can do, and through word of mouth. So that's like I don't know, that's my plea after reading all these stories. There's more. I mean, we'll link more in the show notes, but we could do one of these a week, honestly. But we're also trying to highlight good things. So gotta keep the wins and the eyes on networking forward, and that's all we can do, right, Joe?
Absolutely. And I think this is just for us, like, I don't know, I guess, especially for me, this is a good time to just reflect on these news stories as we lead up to and during budget season, which is happening right now in these towns. These are how these decisions are made. And that we like to share, how to get records, how to go to these meetings, how to keep track of the budget. And now is the time to be doing that. So I hope these stories help you feel a little bit more informed and connected to the Western Mass community.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for listening. Our numbers we're happy with, and we're glad that people are listening, and we're just trying to make a better garden for everybody to live in. And we talk a lot about police bullshit, and it's because that's what's near and dear to my heart. But you can see people's a budget is people's priorities, and we need to stop policing doesn't stop shit. You can't prohibit everything. It doesn't work. It's never worked. So thank you for sharing, thank you for liking, thank you for listening to us. I don't have much more to say, so I would love Joanna to say your piece, and I'll see y'all next time.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Spence. It's always fun. And even though our topics aren't always uplifting, in a way, we're hoping that they bring out parts of uplifting things, like Spencer said. Like, from this, I hope you feel more connected to your community, just knowing what's going on. No, it's not great news, but again, so many more of our other episodes highlight the great work and the great things that are going on in Western Mass. If you are a gardener, start your seeds. It's going to be time to plant them soon, end of May. So we're getting there. We're almost to the warm season. Again, thank you for sharing, liking, listening, and please take care.